Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Anthony, and welcome back to Let Me Be Frank, episode 50. So, for season 4, this is the first time we are doing Frankly Speaking in this sense. Frankly Speaking used to be like motivational self help. That's Mindful Moment now on the show. So, frankly speaking, I kind of did a little bit in past seasons. I want to say season 3 specifically. I remember talking about when Will Smith and Janet Hubert, certain news stories like that. I went into the admission scandal with what's her name, Lori Laughlin and Felicity Huffman and all that type of stuff. That's what this is going to kind of be like. Maybe different things in future weeks. For example, I might do more like fun material because it's going to be on Fridays, and sometimes we just need a good laugh or we just need something a little more lighthearted. And the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today, I just want to offer a little bit of warning. It's going to be some really serious topics, and I might put some comical stuff in between. It's going to be really hard because I'm going to be focusing on stuff regarding James Charles, stuff regarding Dante Wright, and stuff regarding Rachel Hollis. Rachel Hollis, it's a little bit more, I think, sillier, which is why I'm saving her for the last. But Dante Wright is something that's really serious going on right now. So that's going to be, like, it's going to be interesting talking about this stuff because as much as I want to maybe tread lightly, at the same time, I want to be open and honest and unfiltered about the stuff and talk about how I really feel on it. But before I do that, I'm also going to kind of reiterate in the most non-biased way the story and then give my take on it. And I just want to also let you guys know that this is just my opinion. Don't sue me. Yeah, it's just my opinion. I encourage people to also do their own research as well. You don't have to agree with every single thing that I say. There's going to be a lot of different thoughts that I have on this stuff. So, yeah, let's get started. So, I'm going to start with James Charles. If you don't know who James Charles is, oh, by the way, too, you might see me looking down here and there. I have some notes. I have a lot of notes on stuff because I'm not someone that has like a teleprompter and stuff. It's a lot that I'm going to be getting into. I hope this episode's not too long for you guys, and also let me know how you guys think of this episode, if you like it or don't or whatever. Anyway, so James Charles, he's a beauty guru, he's a YouTuber. He has like, I think, about 26 million followers on YouTube and other platforms and stuff. He also was the first spokesmodel for CoverGirl, or the first male spokesperson for CoverGirl in 2016. I almost forgot that happened. So he's definitely accomplished some things. I really wanted to talk about this subject. The main reason I wanted to, besides it being a serious topic, is that I have a younger cousin who is a minor and he looks up a lot to James Charles. And I would never want my cousin to be in this type of predicament, to be, to look up to someone so much. Not saying that James Charles would message him specifically, but to look up to any sort of celebrity as a minor and, looking up to someone and kind of the best way I could put it is almost saying yes to everything because you're so infatuated by that person, you'll almost do anything that they say. I never want him to be taken advantage of. So I felt like this was important to discuss my thoughts on and to try to really look at the whole picture because I didn't know everything that was going on. And for people, like I said, that aren't familiar with him, there's some stuff that I kind of have to talk about before I talk about this issue of him flirting with underage boys. So in 2019, there was a video by another beauty guru named Tati Westbrook. And if you don't, she's just another beauty guru. Jeffree Star, I'm going to mention lightly too. He's another beauty guru and they do a bunch of other stuff. All of them sell makeup pretty much. Shane Dawson is also a little bit part of this. Him and Jeffree, they kind of, long story short, they kind of pushed Tati, who was a really good friend of James Charles, to make this video. I think it was called By Sister, and it was like exposing James Charles of flirting with straight men and being a predator. And one thing that really sucked about this type of video was that because James Charles is gay, it's like every single time I see in the comments, people who are homophobic will just be like, oh, he was gay and that's why he was a predator. And that never equates to the same thing. That's something I wanted to get across with this, is just because you were born gay or you're part of the LGBT community doesn't make you this sinful, predatory, pedophile person. It just does not equate. But for some reason, some religious people like to say that's the same thing, and it's not, in my opinion. So anyway, so yeah, Tati Westbrook, she goes on for a long time about that. James Charles responded and pretty much shut them down and had all these receipts saying that they were lying and stuff. And then at the same time, though, looking to today in 2021, I don't think they were lying about everything just because of the allegations that are coming out. I think he was kind of, well, let me just say the whole story and then I'll start getting into my opinion. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. So he there was two boys. I want to say they were both 16, or one was 15 and the other was 16. There were two boys who were minors in high school. They came out with their stories about James Charles flirting with them, talking on Snapchat, pressuring them into sending pictures, which that gets into a whole realm of child pornography. If James were to obtain those pictures, I'm not 100% sure how much he received from them exactly, but pretty much that the boys were uncomfortable with James's advances. So I want to say not much after, James Charles comes out with an apology video. I think maybe like a week ago at this point. Now, by the time that this posts, I think it'd be at least a week ago that he comes out with this apology video, and he kind of blames the whole thing on, well, he said that the boys were lying about their age, and he said because like he just hates being single, that like this is why this is happening and stuff. And I don't know, I just feel like the way that he came off about it, because he does mention in his apology video too that he was almost like desperate to find love, and in a way I can relate to that a little bit. I felt like some point in my life when I was younger, probably around his age and a little bit younger, my whole identity had become being in a relationship or wanting to be in a romantic relationship. And that does, I feel like for some reason, especially in the LGBT community, that tends to happen to us. I don't know if it's because with some of us, our self-confidence just gets shattered from life. I don't know if like that's why we feel like we're just not worthy enough, because at the same time, there's a lot of like toxicity in the community, whether it comes to someone's body shape or any of that type of stuff. There can definitely be a lot of masculinity toxicity in the community, like being like mask for mask, or not being too gay and stuff. There's a lot of different transphobia is in the community. Within our own community, it sucks. But that's a whole different I've mentioned some of those things in past episodes, and that's like a whole different episode. Yeah, with James, back to my opinion on the situation a little bit. When he was talking about his with being single and stuff, it's like the way that I interpreted him saying all that stuff, it was almost like he was trying to tell the audience over and over again that he was a good person and was a good partner and was like actively looking in that way. And at the same time, I feel like you just need to be a good person. You don't have to tell people you're a good person. You don't have to tell people you're a good partner. Just do it. Just be it. Just be that type of person. Actions speak louder than words. And unfortunately, when we post online how much that we want to be with someone, it does look desperate, and it actually turns people off at the end of the day. So I think that's something he had admitted that he had to learn pretty much and kind of go about it. I'm gonna skip ahead with his apology video. I have to acknowledge at the end of that video, he mentioned about taking a social media break to learn. But like, what exactly do you have to learn? Like I just feel like it's common sense and it's the law to not be with a minor. So like what I mean, I don't know, maybe I've just watched too much Law and Order SVU, but like you just don't be with someone under 18. I don't even personally, being with an 18-year-old grosses me out. No offense. I don't even want to be, I'm 28 and I'm going to be 29 this year. I barely even want to be with someone that's 21 because that's like emotionally your brain is still growing until at least age 25. And it's like, yeah, give me someone age 25 or older because then I know that hopefully most of the stupidity and just immaturity is out of their system, hopefully. And if it's not, then you just know that there's a good chance they're not going to get much better than what they are at age 25 and older. I mean, to be honest, that to be frank, let me be frank, you know? Um, so I wanted to also acknowledge too with this whole thing because I mean it's a crime to obtain, sexual pictures from a minor and to even be like having these types of inappropriate conversations. He never specifically says what they said back and forth. It pretty much just showed from his victims that there was a lot of like requesting for those types of pictures. One thing that doesn't sit well with me is that he's not really facing consequences, at least not yet. I mean, it has only been a week, but still, like, there really he hasn't been charged with anything. He hasn't lost, like, he's lost some subscribers on YouTube, but not nearly as much as he did that first time with the Tati situation. He was losing like millions, where maybe he lost 100,000, which is a lot. But to someone that has 26 million subscribers, that's really like a very small dent in a big fucking car. So, and none of that. He didn't lose like any brands, really. I think Morphe is a makeup brand that sells his products, and they're known for not taking this type of stuff. Regarding, for example, for Jeffree Star, I had mentioned they dropped him after some controversial stuff, and a couple other beauty influencers. They haven't dropped James Charles, and this is like a really serious thing. So I think we have to ask ourselves, why has he not faced as much of a consequence as other people? And I think it's just because he has like this big celebrity status, and I think because he's rich, and I mean, I could even push it and say because he's white, but I think the main reason why he's not facing as much controversy is because the victims are boys. Because if he was flirting with girls, for example, there's a YouTuber named Onision, which people who watch a lot of YouTube, they know who that is. He did like the banana song, the I'm a banana song or whatever. He is just fucking out there. He was talking to underage girls at one point, and it's like I mean, his whole career just there's a lot more to his stuff too, but it's like, I mean, it's still a guy preying on younger girls. It looks a lot worse than a guy preying on younger boys, and especially like a woman, if she was preying on younger boys. We've seen it in the media and stuff regarding like teachers with their students and stuff, taking advantage. Other celebrities we've seen, it's not taken nearly as seriously. It's like the boys are lucky that someone famous or this hot woman or something is flirting with them. And that's not the case. They're being taken advantage of. There's a whole power system there. And whether James knew it or not, he had power above these 16-year-old boys. And it's not right. And I think there does need to be a little bit more consequences with this situation, not just like a slap on the wrist or like, oh, I'm gonna go learn how not to be a pedophile. Like, it's just, I think this isn't being treated as seriously as it really is. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next one. This is going to be the hardest one to talk about. Dante Wright. And this one happened the most recently out of the three of these stories because James and Rachel I think they were at least a week ago, and they're not, I mean, they're serious. Well, the Rachel one, you can kind of question how serious that really is. I just think that's going to be a really interesting story. But Dante Wright, this is really serious because we've had this issue time and time again in this country, and just, we've been dealing with police brutality and things related to that, and Black Lives Matter. We've been dealing with this for quite a long time now. With this situation, I'm going to tell a story and then give my opinion. There's a lot. It's weird. I was going to say there's a lot to the story, but there really isn't. Like, the only thing we have right now is body cam footage, and it really isn't that long. I think it's 1 to 2 minutes, but there's so much to interpret from this footage. So I'm going to go over Dante Wright was 20 years old, and this all happened in Minnesota. So here's kind of like the short story, and then I'm going to get more into it. So Dante Wright he was pulled over for a traffic violation for having expired registration tags. And then the police discovered that there was a warrant out for his arrest. And that we're going to dig into too. We'll dig into that as well. Don't worry. So at that moment, they try to arrest him, and he starts resisting. He got into the car, and obviously the cops are trying to get him. I want to say there was 2 men and there's a woman, specifically, that is the main culprit of everything. She is screaming out that she's going to tase him, but instead of holding a taser, she's actually holding her gun, and accidentally, which I'm going to put in quotations for now, shoots him. And then he ends up still driving off for, I want to say, about several blocks, runs into another car, and he dies he dies on the scene. Okay, so that's like the most unbiased way I can probably say that story. There's just a lot to dig into that whole thing, and I know everyone right now probably has really strong opinions and little like things to that they want to kind of dissect from the situation. People who might not really have sympathy for Dante Wright. 2 things that are brought up a lot that I saw were that, well, what was his warrant for? And why was he resisting in the first place? He should have just complied. So that's like a couple arguments I see on one side. And then on another side, it's that it was racially charged, and that, once again, a Black man is, dying at the hands of the police, and that shouldn't be happening. Oh, I forgot to mention too, after all this happened, there were protesters, which that's another term I'm a little iffy on, only because the protesters were damaging the police cars, and some of them started looting stores. Why are we looting stores? That has nothing to do with Dante Wright's death. It doesn't change the outcome of that. So I just don't get why some people feel like they need to steal from these businesses. Like, that part is just, it's a separate thing, but I just had to acknowledge that too. Like, why, it doesn't make the protesters look good when they're, doing that type of stuff. But anyway, so I digress. So the biggest issue that happened with all of this was, how did the officer mistake her gun or her taser her gun for a taser? Like, how did she? I don't own a gun and I don't own a taser. I have held both, and I just don't understand. It's like it's like grabbing a banana and yelling apple, 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 but like, it's so obvious that that's not in your hand. And I do want to acknowledge too, she has at least 20 years experience in the police force. I think they said 26 years. So it's like, I just don't understand. And they're used to, because I would think to myself at first, oh, but like, it's such a stressful situation, she just grabbed it really quick. She had that out for like a long time. I think it was like 6-7 seconds minimum. Like, it was like this for like a lot. Like, she's like, I'm tasing you, I'm going to tase you, taser, taser, taser. And it's like, meanwhile, her hand is out there a long time, and literally your right eyeball could see for a second, whoa, that's a gun, that's not a taser. And just like, I don't know, there's just a lot of things with that bother me, and that bother a lot of people. It's like, how do you make that mistake? And in general, regardless of how you feel about the situation, she does need to face some sort of consequences, which I'm going to get into that in a minute. But like, there needs to be consequences to that action, because that's something that Dante's family has to live with the rest of their lives, and that's something that she has to live with for the rest of her life. Yeah, so updated news on what ended up happening most recently as I'm recording the Wednesday before this post, so I don't know what's going to happen in the next day or two. Hopefully not too much to really skew the story, but she was put on leave, and then today she was charged with second degree manslaughter. Did I write that? Yes, second degree manslaughter. So pretty much what that means is that she's not going to serve more than 10 years in prison, or they're just going to have her pay this big ass fine. My opinion on all of that is I think she'd somehow plea out. I don't know. I just feel like the way that this is playing out, I don't think her sentence, in my opinion, let me be frank, I don't, whatever her sentence is, I don't think it's going to be long enough for what happened. I The way that she yelled taser, and afterward, I forgot to mention too, afterwards when he kept driving off for a little bit from after the shot, she said, "Oh my god, I shot him." I think those phrases are what really convinced the chief of police, and just in general convinced a lot of people that it was accidental. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me to judge whether that was an accident or not. What I do want to acknowledge is that I don't believe that it was racially motivated. I just don't. I think with situations like these, and with any situation, you have to view them on an individual basis. I think because of all the with the George Floyd trial that's happening right now, that's a completely different situation than this one. And the problem is they do all kind of get meshed into one when they're not all exactly the same. I like to really analyze every situation, because it's kind of like saying, it reminds me of, I don't know, like there's a stereotype about Asians being good at math, or I used to work in retail, and there used to be this awful, probably still is, awful stereotype that Spanish people steal the most. It's not true. But I think that's why I like to look at things by the individual, or by the individual situation, because every situation and the individuals in every situation are different. So with this one specifically, I mean, she is in the wrong for obviously killing him. And something that, regardless of what your beliefs are on this whole matter, there was a life lost. And I don't think anyone wants to lose their child or their nephew or their brother, or no one wants to lose their loved one to being shot. I just realized I forgot to bring water or tea down, so I am screwed when it comes to taking a talking break. I want to piggyback on some of the other things that I said. For example, people would criticize, well, why was he resisting from arrest? Which I think I think partially is a good argument, and it's a good argument and it's not a good argument, and I want to explain why. Because yeah, of course, you don't want to resist from the police, or you shouldn't, in the average situation. However, because of past situations, there were certain African Americans who peacefully resisted. They or peacefully resisted. What an oxymoron! They didn't resist at all, and they still were killed. So I can't imagine the amount of fear that might have been in Dante's head regarding that situation. But I also can't read minds, so I can't assume exactly how he felt. I don't know. I mean, I could assume he must have been somewhat scared. I know if I was in that situation of having warrants and stuff, I mean, I don't want to go to jail. And especially, like, I think he would have been going to jail for like at least 20 years. So, I mean, obviously, like, I don't know, when you're in a certain mindset of doing something wrong, I'm not trying to like defend him in this sense, but I'm just trying to say, when someone commits some sort of crime, or if it is a big crime and they're trying to get away with it, or trying to avoid prison, they're not always in the right mindset of doing things, which might have been why he just tried to escape, because he didn't want to die, which unfortunately that's what ended up happening. Another argument was what, and I really wanted to, this took me so long to research about what his warrant was for, because at first I was seeing it was related to carrying marijuana, which is like such a small, just compared to so many other things, it's such a small issue to, be arrested for, because it's, marijuana is legal in certain states now. And it's just not a big thing. Like, so many people are in prison for marijuana and weed now. So, like, when I saw that at first, it was like, okay, yeah, that really isn't something so big to lose a life over. But then I also was doing research and saw that that was just one of the things that his warrant was for. There was also a warrant. It was related to choking and trying to rob a woman. So I would see stories about it was this, no, it was this. And I actually found out it was both of those things. And that's why it was so many years too. And that's why I said it was like at least 20 years that he was going to go to prison potentially for, and he was out on bail. So yeah, and I mean, that's really serious. And that's the problem with these situations. They're never black and white. There is definitely a lot of gray to them, but for some reason our beliefs go very black and white. And I think we should be conflicted in certain things. However, one thing we shouldn't be conflicted is what I said earlier about that a life was lost and it shouldn't have been. If he was supposed to go to prison, okay, he's going to go to prison. Um, just, no one should have to lose someone over that, over an accident, quote, like the cop said or whatever. All right, so the last story that I'm gonna go over, this one might be a little bit lighthearted. This one I'm probably gonna actually really, this one actually pisses me off. Not that the other two don't piss me off, because there definitely is injustice with those situations. But with this one, I think it pisses me off because the difference between those two and this one is James Charles knew he did something wrong. That female officer knew she did something wrong. Rachel Hollis thinks she's God. And I people might be wondering, well, who the fuck is Rachel Hollis? So Rachel Hollis, she's an author, a motivational speaker, and blogger. She came out with one of her biggest books was Girl Wash Your Face. I think Girl Stop Apologizing is the second book. These are books that typically MLM consultants masturbate to. I'm just saying maybe that's a little too extreme, but I mean, these are, she's talked, her motivational speaking has been at a lot of MLM conferences. And if you're not familiar with MLM is, I have a past episode from season 1 on that, but it's multi-level marketing companies where, you sign up consultants and this and that. Some people say they're pyramid schemes. But that's a whole different thing. We're not going to focus on that today. We're going to focus on Rachel Hollis and just this awful TikTok that she ended up making. So if you're also not familiar with her, I would say her brand, if I had to define her brand, it's all about being relatable. Like, I actually read her first book, which I know it's a little shocking. I was gifted her first book, and I remember I read it, and I can't remember I wish I did a book review on it, but it just, at first I was like, okay, like this is pretty good. And then once I finished it, it was like a bunch of just like, look at me, I'm hashtag relatable. Like, it was a lot of that content and just like almost trying too hard to like be like, I'm just like everybody else. And to me, that's such a red flag of someone who isn't that, someone who's pretending to be someone who is narcissistic. I went to school for psychology for quite a few years, and just, I don't know, everything about this woman to me screams narcissist. I can't legally diagnose her with that, but unfortunately, I'm already giving too many opinions before the actual stories, so I will digress. I'm sorry. She made a TikTok and pretty much what she said in it, she talks about how she has a cleaning lady that comes twice a week, and she said someone that cleans her toilets, and someone had commented that she's privileged AF, and she acknowledged that, yes, I am privileged, but then she goes on to say, but I worked really hard for it. And then that person had said, well, your life experiences don't really make you relatable. And she she responds, that what makes you think that I want to be relatable? And that pretty much she tries to live a life that most people can't relate to, and she starts comparing herself to famous women in history. I'm gonna really dig into this because there's so many problems with so many things. And if you're familiar with TikTok, you know they're like a minute max. So it's like, how do you fuck up so many times in less than a minute? I don't know. She, let's start at the beginning. So because I immediately was like, whoa, like that's a little weird to say it this way. So I personally don't have an issue, and I don't think a lot of people had an issue with her saying that she has a cleaning lady or a housekeeper, because like that would be like, if I made enough money to do that, I probably would hire someone personally. My mom has cleaned houses for at least 25 years. She makes good money from that. And I think why that first phrase stuck out to me so much was the way when she said like, my cleaning lady, she cleans my toilets, the way that she said it in the clip, it was almost like talking down. I feel like someone who is rich and or doesn't appreciate people who are considered the help will always describe workers like maids and cleaning people and service people. They'll always like describe them as like the worst sounding job. Like my mom does way more than clean a toilet. You know, she busts her ass to do her job and other jobs. She works all the time. But you know, people who clean, it's a lot more work than just cleaning toilets. And I just feel like the way that she described that was just like, I'm looking down on that, those types of people. That's definitely how it came off in the clip. You can definitely go look it up. Maybe it will even post in here. Who knows? I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get copyrighted. So then so she acknowledges the privilege thing. And then I forgot to mention too, she says that she with working hard, she says that people don't work as hard as she does, and people don't wake up at 4 in the morning like she does. Like, what does waking up in 4 in the morning have anything to do with working hard? There's people who work third shift. There's people, like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Just because you wake up at 4 in the morning doesn't mean like I don't know. I just feel like she took that phrase like early bird gets the worm, and it's just like, that's not how life is. It's just not how life is. It's not what defines a hard worker. And unfortunately too, people, when she said she works harder than other people, it's kind of like why she is where she's at. That's not 100% true in my opinion, because it's like there's certain people that bust their ass every day and they're not where she's at. It's just, there's a lot more factors to working. Like, just because you work hard doesn't mean you're always going to like be rich or be super successful. Unfortunately, like, there's certain cards that are dealt to certain people. And I think the problem, and I try not to do it with my own self-help stuff too much or at all, is that with that type of advice, we always try to, people, I'll see self-help people say, oh, like if you follow this advice, you're going to be rich and successful like me. And it's like, no, that doesn't mean, just because they follow your advice or do your fucking, like, maybe every morning you drink a vegan smoothie, just because someone does that every morning doesn't mean they're going to be rich and successful. So she was just, if we're really going to like be honest, so she's married to some, or she was married. I would say she's divorced now recently, but she was married to a Disney executive who, I mean, just saying that job, you already know he's someone who makes a lot of money. So, she was fortunate enough to marry that man years ago and, obtain his types of connections for her small businesses, and just be able to live the privileged life that she does live. So, and that's not even taking other factors into effect either. This is just like, she made such a good connection, and not everyone is dating someone who's super rich that would support them in that way. So that was something that definitely stuck with me there. Another thing that really stuck with me was, if you watch the TikTok, the way that she says, what makes you think I want to be relatable, she gives the craziest fucking look into the camera. Like, I believe that was like her really showing her true colors. And I hate to say that, but I don't this video I think really clarified that, like, I don't think she's a good person. I'm sorry, like, I just don't think she's like this genuine relatable person. And obviously, I mean, she's even saying she's not that relatable person. So I think the mask accidentally slid off for a second. She was, and then after all this happened, all the blow up, she was like, "Oh shit!" Like, I just accidentally like got a little too real for the followers and kind of like forgot her brand, because she was like, "What makes you think I want to be relatable?" It's like, don't, in all your books and in your motivational speaking, are you trying to uplift people and say, "Do what I do and you'll be successful and you'll," and this and that, and like try to be people's friends and their pal and stuff, or are we just fake as fuck, you know? So that's something that, like, I really want to know the answer to that, because it's like, you can't, like, you can't have it both ways. Like, you either were trying to be this relatable person or you weren't. But like, I don't know, I just feel like, and I don't know, there's so much I could say about this situation, because there is a lot to stuff that happened with her in the past, but I just don't, I just feel like she was really contradicting pretty much everything, and like her entire brand, and kind of going back on what made her so as successful as she is today and a bestseller author. I mean, if she didn't try to be hashtag relatable like she did in her work, I don't think she would be where she is today. No offense, but that's really what shot her up to bestsellers and all that good stuff. And it's like, to just kind of almost forget where you got your success from, and to now be almost like this queen and like looking down on people and like, I'm better than all of you. Like, that's definitely the type of personality that she is starting to exhibit in stuff like this and just in general. And I think people are just sick of the bullshit. The part that killed me, that absolutely slaughtered me, was when, because like that was already bad enough, then she proceeded to, in a post, she proceeded to compare herself to women who aren't relatable. She compared, so pretty much, and she starts listing these women, and pretty much what she was getting at in a way was she was comparing herself to these very influential women. Like, she mentions Oprah, Harriet Tubman, Amelia Earhart, freaking Malala was shot by the Taliban, and you're trying to tell me Harriet Tubman helped slaves escape, and you're telling me that you are as influential as those women? No, the fuck you are not, Rachel Hollis. You are not. I'm sorry. You are Ellen 2020, and unfortunately, Ellen 2020 is not doing so hot because of similar bullshit. So it's like, no, you're not. And that's the problem, is people get so successful and rich and like loved by so many people that they think they're freaking God, and they think that they're just so up here, and you're not. You are human, and we all bleed red, and we all shit in toilets, and I guess you don't have to clean yours, and I'm going to go clean mine after I'm done with this episode. But like, we need to view, and I guess this is kind of something that relates to the other two topics too. We need to fucking view each other as equals and treat each other as equals. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But it would be great if we could start moving in some sort of direction with that, because it's awful. It's awful, this like power imbalance. And it's not just money too. There's a lot of different power imbalances that happen between people, and it's just disgusting, and it sucks, and it just shows, unfortunately, how greedy human society can become over like, over just like little changes of being more successful or more rich or more, or prettier, or more in shape, or there's so many different things that people will all of a sudden feel like they're better than a bunch of other people because of like this big change or something, or this positive change in their lives. And it's like, no, we we're equal. I'm no better than anyone who's listening or watching this show right now, and neither are these people I'm talking about, or, well, James and Rachel, or, any, like, no one is better than anyone else, or that's how it should be. But I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion at the end of the day. Pretty much with the rest of the story, She tries apologizing, which, I mean, at least she apologized, I guess. And same thing with James. I mean, he had the whole apology video too, but it's like the, it's hard to trust them. With Rachel, it was worse though, because when she was apologizing, then it turned into she was completely blaming her marketing team, which is just awful. Like, your marketing team did not post that without your approval. Like, you probably posted that video yourself. You can tell in the TikTok, like, she is recording herself. It wasn't like some publicist or some random person recording her. Like, she was recording that. She was like, this is great, I love this, and she decided to post that. Like, like, I know that's what happened. I That's what many people believe. There's just no way. Like, I don't think anyone believes that her team was like trying to fuck up her career by posting this, because it's like you wouldn't have made it in the first place if you didn't find anything wrong with it. And I don't think she found anything wrong with that at first, and then was like, oh shit, afterwards, like once there was so much negative feedback on it and people commenting on it like I am, she was like, oh, I gotta backpedal and stuff. And she ended up firing the team member. So it's like, oh my God. And then this poor woman that cleans her house twice a week, who knows if she even works there anymore. God, that bitch needs a raise. But anyway, I think that's all I'm going to talk about, because it's so depressing. Sometimes this world gets so depressing. So I think maybe in the future, I'm going to do some fun topics in between too, because God, this is just so much. But I want to thank you guys so much for listening and for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the show if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, I mean, hey, subscribe anyway. It's not like when you don't hit the bell, it's not like you're going to see the videos anyway. But the audio is a little bit better about notifying people. No shade, YouTube, I promise. I want to thank my executive producer, Monica Leigh, and I want to thank my producers, Alexa H and Rebecca R. If you would like to become a producer yourself, you can go to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of your favorite platforms. Also, pick up some merch. Make people jealous, because my merch is just so amazing. It's super special, awesome. I hope you guys have a super special, awesome day, and bye.